Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Empower Series Online. My name is Clifton Johnson. I'm the founder of the Empower Series Incorporated, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization brought to you by the generous donations of Comerica Bank, AE Media Group, and you. So thank you. Today, our topic is life insurance. So normally September is National Life Insurance Month, but because of the pandemic and this year, the campaign has actually started in July and it's running through the end of September. And because our topic is life insurance, we normally have an insurance agent or financial advisor talk about the importance of life insurance and give you some education along with some inspiration to take action to get the right coverage for your family. Today, our guest is Nicole Ivory. She is an insurance broker and she specializes in life insurance and property and casualty. She has a very special place in my heart because she was the insurance advisor of my brother, Tyrell. So Nicole, welcome to the Empower Series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Now, you used to be in Dallas, but you're in Waco now. Is that correct?
Yes. So I actually made the transition, which my parents love because they were feeling a little lonely here. You know, my brother and I are from Dallas. So I've always, for like the last 20 years, drove back and forth on I-35. I know where all the police are. So if you
But you're licensed in the state of Texas, though, right? So it doesn't
Yes,
really
I
matter where
am.
you live. You can
Oh,
service anybody with their life insurance needs in the state of Texas.
that
Is
is
there any other
correct.
states you can operate in?
Also, the state of Louisiana.
Okay, so 2 states.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're on the show. You know how a lot of times I, as a financial advisor, I was helping a lot of people knew that I was meeting, but I would tell my family members that I help strangers. You know, I don't help my family because they don't listen to me.
Same
But
here. I think that's for
I
most
am
business owners.
so glad. I am so glad. I interviewed Taro in August last year, and
Okay.
we were talking about life insurance and a will, and he was so not sharing anything with me. But who knew that he's been working with you? Well, he told me he wanted me to meet you, but he never
Okay.
told me that he was actually working with you.
Okay.
And so I'm so glad to know that you had his ear and he
Yes.
was open to your advice. So again, you hold a very special place in my heart. So thank you for
Thank
helping
you.
Taro.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, it's teamwork.
I hear you.
You
I hear
planted
you.
the seed. You planted the seed.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Taro is my big brother. Unfortunately, he passed away in April this year of COVID-19. It was very sudden. And in April last year, he was our podcast guest. And I had the opportunity of interviewing him and having him share with you his inspirational story. And he's been the inspiration of the Empower series, and that was just so special. So if you want to see my brother, you can go to our YouTube channel and please check it out. Taro Johnson, uh, he's uh, he's just a special person. He's resting with his father right now.
Yes. It was a wonderful interview too. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us about what you do. Introduce yourself to our community, Nicole.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. I am Nicole Ivory. I am the founder of AI Mutual. And so, why AI Mutual? Well, if you look at the letters, it's AIM, and we tell everyone to aim high, okay? Don't lowball your goals in life. We tell everyone to aim high, and we help them achieve their financial goals. So, we specialize, like he just mentioned, we specialize in life insurance, disability, long term care services. And we're here to help you on your financial journey towards success. We always say our success is based off your success. And so we definitely want to make sure that you are confident about the direction that your family is headed.
So today you're going to talk to us about life insurance
Yes.
and the
Yes,
importance of life insurance,
it
right?
is. It's extremely important. And I think people don't really understand the magnitude of life insurance. And I say a big reason of that is because our government doesn't stress it enough. It's not mandated, right? If you think of auto insurance, it's mandated, right? If you get pulled over and you don't have insurance, you can get a ticket. So everyone definitely knows they have to have auto insurance. And then even home insurance is mandated as well. If you want to purchase a new home, you have to have homeowners insurance, right? But life insurance is not mandated. So most people just don't even think about it. But that is the most important insurance, in my opinion, to have because it actually can cover everything else that we just talked about. So my goal is to educate people of the importance of life insurance.
Well, this is the month that we do it. So September is normally the month where we stress the importance of life insurance, but
Okay.
life insurance is important every day.
Yes, it is.
My brother fortunately got a policy, and when I looked at the policy, the date on it was September 30th, which which is actually my birth date. So
Oh,
I thought that was just
that
so
is
so cool.
amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but definitely life insurance is a loving act because it's really taking care of the people that are dependent upon you and that you
Right.
love. And you'll tell us more about that. But you also mentioned education. That is very, very important because at this point, we want to make sure that we're not only inspiring you to take action in meeting with an agent, but we want to educate you so that you'll be an astute customer and you'll understand. Normally, we have a financial advisor that is licensed with FINRA and SEC to
Awesome.
sell, to advise you on investments,
Mhm.
mutual funds, and equities, and they do life insurance.
Okay.
But right now, Nicole, just to help us understand your role and your
Sure.
certification, you are an insurance broker. So explain to us
Correct.
what the difference is between an insurance broker, an insurance agent, and possibly a financial advisor.
Yeah, so definitely. So an insurance broker actually has the ability to provide various products from multiple insurance carriers to their clients. So for instance, you'll see later that I used to work for MetLife. Agents who work for MetLife are considered captive agents, meaning that they can only present MetLife products to their clients. However, I'm an insurance broker, so I am appointed with MetLife, Prudential, SBI, Principal, Assurity, multiple brokers, multiple insurance carriers, which is awesome because now I can actually tailor the product to my client's needs. I think sometimes when you're a captive agent, you have just a set of products, and of course, you want to make them fit for your client, but sometimes they're just not always a good fit. So I really am blessed that I am able to be appointed with various carriers so that way I can actually tailor the product to the insurance experience.
Well, tell us a little bit about the history of life insurance.
Yes, so the history of life insurance, well, it's very complicated when it comes to people of color, okay? So we really didn't have a great um, experience with them initially. It's improving now, but let's just kind of talk about why we had a strained relationship. And I think that kind of also is hindering us from moving forward with the process of insurance. And the reason why I say that sometimes, just to kind of talk about land, we used to have a great relationship. I'm talking about African Americans' great relationship with land. When you date back to Africa or even in the Caribbeans, we used to grow our own products there. But then, of course, when we became slaves and brought to America, the land was associated with toil, right? With heartache, with hardships. So now a lot of people our age, we just don't even want to be in the country. We don't want to be associated with that. We're city people, right? So I think sometimes experiences can separate us from items that's actually important to us. It's important to own land. It's important to know how to farm. It's important to be able to grow your own food. And the same thing applies to insurance. It's important for us to have insurance policies. But let's talk about it. So actually, the insurance industry started off with slave contracts, okay? They actually used to insure us because back in the day, we were property, all right? So slavery just rested at the foundation of American capitalism. And of course, it was synonymous with sugar, tobacco, cotton plantations. And basically, there were several companies that were even mentioned throughout this whole George Floyd movement. You probably heard about it, New York Life and AIG, right? So they had a lot of explaining to do because they actually founded the first slaveholder policies, okay? What does that mean? What is a slaveholder policy? Well, that slave insurance involved a contract between a policyholder, okay, and an insurance company in which the insurer promised to pay a sum of money upon the death of an enslaved person. All right. So, oh my gosh, can you believe that? These slaves actually had a contract on their head, if you will. They were property. So if they passed away, the slave owner would get paid. In the 3 decades leading up to the American Civil War, such policies were widespread in mostly southern states. Policies were sold from the amounts of $375 to $600 on the life of each slave. So can you just imagine that? Just think about your life today, that your worth is only $600. That's terrible, you know? But a 1906 history of New York life says that 339 of the company's first 1,000 policies were written on the lives of slaves. And of course, AIG also insured the lives of slaves. So very complicated, we very complicated relationship there. But then of course, we were able to gain our freedom, right? And so then we were able to purchase life insurance on our own. Okay, so we were excited to do that because we still saw the importance of life insurance. We've always seen the importance of life insurance. So once we were free, of course, we tried to obtain that life insurance, but insurance firms would deny us coverage. It was very interesting too, because they stated that their underwriting department just really couldn't determine our value anymore, right? Because they knew our value as workers, right? As being slaves. They didn't really know our life expectancy as freemen. So I thought that was really interesting that they couldn't assess that. So as a result, some of them just wouldn't even insure us at all. How horrible is that, right? They just wouldn't even, they told their agents not to even solicit to the Black community. So that's not good at all, because if they cannot solicit to the Black community, for insurance policies, well, then that means we can't get those insurance policies, which stops our future from having generational wealth. So we've been stopped in many different areas from being able to obtain that. And then when we did get insurance policies, they were actually more expensive than our counterparts. So that's not right either. So we were paying, maybe 3 to 10 times more than our white counterparts. And that's still, affecting our pocketbook, right? And it's just really sad. And I think even the value of some of those policies were like a third of what our white counterparts had. So we just have a very complicated history. So restoring the relationship with the Black America in the insurance industry. So again, going back to George Floyd movement, man, we've seen so many things happen in 2020, right? Who knew that George Floyd movement would even enter into the insurance world? I would have never thought that, but it did, because it made every company become accountable to African Americans. Now African Americans in companies were demanding change, they were demanding equality, they were demanding fairness. So again, going back to companies who had strained relationships dating all the way back, to the 1800s, they are now being held accountable for those actions. And so I was really excited to hear all of these companies coming forward, apologizing for what they've done. Certain carriers are even taking initiatives to invest in certain organizations that are for people of color. And that, I think that's a great step forward. They're also looking at their hiring practices, right? Because if you don't really have people who look like you, they kind of don't sell to you, So again, we have to make sure we have those people who look like us in those positions, to where it opens the door and opportunity for people in our community to get access to certain insurance products. So really was excited about the George Floyd movement. Again, everybody's righting their wrongs, and just hopefully this movement doesn't stop. Hopefully it's just not a fad. Hopefully this will continue past 2020.
Yeah, and so it's very important, right? So life insurance was important before the movement. It's definitely it's even more important now during this pandemic and
Okay.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are thinking, why do I even need life insurance, especially if they're young?
Mm-hmm.
And there's also people who are older who have the mindset that, why do I need life insurance? My kids are older now, and do they really need anything? So how do you address educating people on the importance of life insurance?
So I have clients from various backgrounds, various ages, very education levels. So I always like to tailor my conversations to each client to make it relevant to them. Because if I just talk from a general standpoint, who cares? That doesn't really affect me. So when I have a conversation with them, I like to talk about their goals, ask them what they're currently doing, where do they see themselves, what are their goals for their future. So that way I can actually tailor it and talk about specifically how this product will benefit them. So just kind of starting off, I always like to talk about anyone who's breathing, who has breath, I always say needs a life insurance policy, right? Even if it's final expense, because you have to be able to pay for your funeral. My whole saying is your funeral is your responsibility. There was a time, before this pandemic or before this financial crisis, where people actually had money. They could go on to GoFundMe, they could go on to Cash App and give you money to pay for your funeral. However, 50 million people are unemployed now. 40 million people by September will be on the streets. So people just don't even have the money, even if they have the heart. So I always tell people, please don't put any more extra burden on people than they have to. Okay? Your funeral is your responsibility. So if you're breathing, you definitely at least need to have a final expense policy to be able to pay for that. So that's something that I just cover with everyone. The second thing is for my young adults who may not be married. They're kind of like, well, why do I need, an insurance policy? Well, first of all, you're young. So insurance policy prices are based on your age and your health. So if you're young and let's just say you're in your 20s, right? That's great because you can get a fantastic rate, for 30 years. And now they even have insurance policies that go as long as 35 and 40 years. Lock it in today because eventually you will get married. Eventually you will have kids, right? And then if not, you may have a brother or sister with nephews. You may want to leave it to an organization. I tell people all the time, you can actually leave money to organizations, to your churches. As long as you have an EIN number, we can put it in there. So don't limit yourself if you just don't have any kids or not married. You can definitely set someone else's future up or organization's future to better the community. And again, of course, married people, they definitely need it, right? Especially if they just purchased a new house, they have a new baby, maybe they still have student loans. Definitely we want to make sure that all of that is covered. And then, of course, setting their children up for generational wealth success. And then lastly, I always say, my baby boomers, my older people, you definitely need it as well. I get a lot of requests, and I love this. That I get a lot of requests from grandparents who want to make sure that their grandkids are taken care of. I was like, wow, you guys are really thinking about your children, your future, right? Because they always say, oh, I don't care about my kids. They're on their own. But my grandkids, I want to make sure they're good. And so I think that's beautiful. And then also, of course, they need that also for, for I'm losing my train of thought here, for final expense policies. So I always tell everyone that you have to make sure that you have those policies in place. And again, if you're young, do it while you're young so you can lock in those great rates.
So I like the way you talked about starting off with your goals. So whether a person is meeting with the insurance agent, insurance broker, or even a financial advisor to talk about their long-term financial goals in retirement or paying for the kids' education or whatever that might be, it always starts with goals.
Yes.
And I think it's very important to go through a structured conversation to get clear on your goals. A lot of people are not. Some people will say, hey, I don't really care. Or if they really don't care, I say that no one can tell you what your needs are. Because if you don't care that if you pass away, what type of financial burden that's going to put on someone else to take care of your final expenses, if you really don't care, then none of the talking in the world is going to help them realize that.
It's not. You're so right.
But I tell people also that nobody has money set aside with your name on it.
Exactly. Right. No, seriously. I asked them, hey, in your checking account right now, do you have $10,000 for, your mom or whoever if they pass away? Oh, no.
Exactly.
I don't have that. Okay, so this is why you need life insurance. For a small fee, that can be taken care of for you. What a wise choice to make.
And so the other thing you talked about, the difference between an insurance agent or insurance broker and a financial advisor is that financial advisors are definitely registered by, SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, or FINRA,
Correct.
And they're regulated to make sure that they can give you advice around investment products.
Correct.
And those investment products are usually the first choice when it comes to creating wealth and saving and getting a great return on your money and then being able to retire. When you look at life insurance is a very fundamental tool because I look at life insurance as being, if you're not disciplined enough to save and create wealth over your lifetime to pass it on to your heirs,
yes,
then life insurance is a guarantee.
I love it. I love that.
Your heirs will make it to the mountaintop, even if you don't.
Exactly.
Right?
I totally agree. And I say that too, because I always talk about, I'm really big on entrepreneurship and owning your own business because I feel like that definitely contributes to wealth. But everybody doesn't have an entrepreneur spirit. And that's okay. I said, well, definitely with life insurance, if you want your children to be millionaires, they can become a millionaire, And they say, who wants to be a millionaire? That show? Well, you can do that through life insurance. You can create that future that you want for your children.
Yeah, so definitely, I think the players involved in this should definitely be a financial advisor,
yes,
an insurance agent or broker, as well as an attorney from an estate planning perspective,
Yes.
because if you leave your kids a bunch of money
Yes.
and they don't know how to manage that money,
That's right.
so it's very important that you talk about strategies with other
Yeah.
professionals in other areas and disciplines that can help you really control and make sure this money is used in the right way to give
Agree.
your family a leg up, because it's not really a blessing to give somebody who can't really manage money a lot of money.
That's true. And that is true. And that's another struggle that we do have in our community as well. When it comes to wealth management, right? We have to make sure that we know what needs to be done to properly pass this on from generation to generation. I actually have a generational wealth podcast that I did, and it was about the third generation curse. Okay, so basically, the Chinese call it shirtless to shirtless. So basically, the first generation starts off, these parents, they come from nothing. So they're really working, may start a business, right? And then they get that wealth for their second generation, for their kids. So now their kids actually have a leg up because they actually come in to this world with wealth, right? Well, then they get the business from their family, and then they build it up, right? But they're having kids who are kind of spoiled at this point, right? Because they're really riding the wave of success. And so by the time it gets to the third generation, they kind of squander everything away. And so it goes back to that, they're shirtless again, and then it has to start all over. And even in biblical, they call it's the fourth generation. It's like when people get away from God, then on the fourth generation, then it's all gone. And then because they were idolizing money or whatever, and so they have to start all over again. So to prevent that, you definitely have to educate your children about what they're supposed to do with this money once they receive it. Maybe teach them how to live off the interest. Different strategies that you can do to make sure that the third generational curse doesn't happen to your families. Maybe this year because of COVID, they're doing everything via Zoom. But I remember seeing this one time on CNN with a lot of wealthy white kids, and their parents actually send them to this one conference for a week in California, and they talk to them about this very thing. Okay, about not squandering, the parents' wealth. And so they teach these kids how to continue it on to the next generation. I think that's very wise.
So when you talk to your clients
Hmm.
about generating wealth and using life insurance as a tool for that, how do you engage in those conversations with them?
Well, I always tell, first off the back, I always say, do you know anyone who's recently passed away in your family, or a friend, or and they say, oh yes, I do know. People kind of have those people kind of have those stories of someone that they know, especially if it's someone in their family. Then I ask them, how would your life be different had they left you $250,000 or $1 million, right? How would you feel about that person? Would you appreciate them? What would you do with that money? How would that change your life? And I said, well, the great thing about life insurance is you have that unique opportunity to do all those things you just said for, if it's their spouse or their children, right? Or for a certain organization, you can do those things. I mean, what a blessing. You can be a blessing to someone even after you're gone. So now you're creating legacy, right? And I said legacy comes in different forms, but what a blessing you would be. And of course, you would be remembered throughout generations because you can start something. I tell people all the time, it just starts with one person. In my generational wealth speech, I always actually talked about the Rockefellers, It was just from one person, who was like, I have a vision for my family. And then you just see how, wow, it's just really it snowballed into this domino effect where they control most of the wealth in this country. So I tell them, if you want to change your family's last name, right? I always tell people, we want to make sure we take care of our last name. And I tell people also, too, sometimes we're short-sighted, especially as African Americans. We're always thinking about today, maybe tomorrow, but we're not really thinking about 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. I say, what will your family look like? What type of lifestyle are they going to have? And I said, that all can start from today, from a simple decision that you can make today. One other thing I want to say, too, about that is in 2053, it's projected that Black wealth will be zero. We're currently only at 0.5%, have been that way since, Reconstruction, so for 155 years. And then once the numbers really finalize next year, about this year because of COVID, we're probably going to be like maybe a third, because half of our businesses have been wiped out due to COVID. So I tell people, look, if you don't want your family to be broke, impoverished in 2053, look, we have 33 years. Most life policies or people usually get 30-year policies. Make sure that you have funds set up so that way in 2053, right, your family will be okay, And now I even push more. I push my term with return of premium. So with that, in 30 years, if you're still alive, great. You can get those funds back. Now you just gave yourself a stimulus, okay? So because you may need those funds in 33 years from now. We don't really know what's going to happen, but you want to make sure that you're prepared, and you want to make sure that your family is set up for financial success.
Okay, so the first step is really have a conversation around goals and to get very clear, as to what is the need for life insurance. Like, is there a need for it before we get into the details? Because I want you to now step us through the different types.
Sure.
How do you determine how much you need?
Sure.
The insurance process. So kind of step us through that as you would step a client through that in the initial consultation.
Yes. So, of course, I always get the basic information from them. And the basic information for any life policy, we're going to have to get, your birth date, your height, and your weight. That's and any medical conditions or any medication that you're taking. Okay, so that's just basic. That's standard for anyone. The other things is, of course, going back to your goals. Let's talk about your assets, your liabilities. I actually have a formula for that. So basically, we can plug in their mortgage. We can plug in any student loans. We can plug in any credit card debt, any auto, any other loans that they may have, because there may be other loans that they may have. Also, how much do you want to leave your family per year? You may want to leave your family maybe $10,000 for the next 5 or 10 years, right? We can do that as well. And then also to just anything else. Sometimes people will tell you in the conversation what's most important to them. And no one is alike, and all the answers are correct, right? So for some families, especially with kids, education is the most important thing. So they're like, okay, I need to make sure I have this set aside. That's all I care about. I can tell you, hey, you need to worry about this, you need to worry about that. I mean, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. They're like, I don't really care about that. I just want to focus on education. Other people are about generational wealth. Yeah, Nicole, I'm fine with all that, but I need to make sure that I leave my kids this amount of money. So when people say that, I have to let them know, but your basics have to be taken care of first. So we still have to include that. Plus, we can add on, X amount of dollars for the generational wealth. Not a problem. So I kind of just go through that formula with them with a breakdown. Now, of course, I always like to give them the total that they actually need. And the reason why I say that is because, sometimes our wants and needs are different, and also they have to come back to what we can afford with our budget, right? So sometimes the individual may not be able to afford actually the coverage that they need, but at least they actually have that dollar amount of, the policy amount of coverage that they really need, so that way they can aim for that. I tell people we can always get additional coverage later. Let's start somewhere. At least let's get the basics covered, even if we don't have the generational wealth portion covered. We just want to make sure that your family is okay. But I like to leave them with numbers, okay? If they can cover everything, and if they can afford the correct amount of coverage, fantastic. Let's, continue to move forward with that. Now we're going to talk about what vehicle of life products can help you achieve that goal. Because we have
Before you
different
get into
life.
that,
Go ahead.
before you get into that, so the first step then it sounds like is to identify how much insurance they would like to have.
Correct.
And it sounds like you step them through a process of identifying their financial position, their debts, asking about their needs. Do they have kids? Do they want to fund their kids' education,
Correct.
final expenses? Do they want to provide some kind of income for people who are dependent upon them, like their spouse or their children, if they were to pass away early? So you kind of help them calculate that number.
Yes.
In a detailed process. But then some people have said you just take your annual salary and you multiply it times the number of years, like 10 years or something like that. And so there's all these different ways of doing so. But the first step, it sounds like, is you really kind of step them through a calculation of how much life insurance are we really trying to get?
Exactly.
And for most
What are we
people, when
aiming
you look
for?
at the dollar amount, it may be so much. You're getting into a conversation now as to what kind of vehicles are going to be available to help you get close to the amount that you've identified that you needed, right?
Exactly. Correct. That is
Okay.
correct. And so when we talk about those vehicles, and I like to give people all their options. I'm such an option queen. So I like to let people know, first of all, I tell them about all the products available, and then I let them know which products is going to be best for them. That way they're just educated, okay, on everything. And so we're on the same page. So basically, especially with my young people, I'm really big on term, okay? I say term is going to be, you're going to get the most coverage for the least amount of money. That's just off the bat, right? That's the number one bonus of that, or the plus of that. But then also too, now term you can have. So basically, what term is basically a set number of years you can receive. Have level premium, and premium is going to be the dollar amount that you pay, right? And the frequency can be monthly, semi-annual, annually, but that is considered your premium. So if I said, okay, great, I want a 30-year term, then that means for 30 years, I would pay, if it was $50 a month, I would pay $50 a month for the next 30 years. It will not change, okay? So that's perfect, because what I tell people is lock those rates in today. I've already seen certain products, the prices go up, within 3 years. So inflation happens. It's going to happen even more. I just read something the other day that says in 20 years from now, we're going to have to make double what we're making today just to live at the certain lifestyle that we're living today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just crazy. So you definitely don't want to wait 20 years from now. You want to lock it in today. But yeah, so that's what term product is. And then also I let people know they do have an option at the end of their term. Sometimes, depending on your age, you may be able to get another term, or sometimes you may be able to convert it over to a permanent product. Because sometimes people are like, okay, great, I'm almost 70. What do I do? Does that mean I don't have insurance? Well, depending on that product, we read that description, and it's like, no, you can actually still get a permanent product, and I walk them through that process and what that means. But then let's talk about the term return premium. So again, same thing. I love it. You have a level premium for a set amount of years, and that can be anywhere from 10 to 15. With return of premium, they really don't like to do 10 or 15 years, but it can start at 20, 30 years. And so basically what that means is that, wow, now I can actually have a chance of getting my premiums back. And I really like that, because I have some clients who are like, oh no, I have longevity in my family, I'm going to live forever. I want my money back, okay? So I'm like, that's fine. We have a product for you. It will cost you more for this benefit. It does cost more, but the advantages are, if you beat that clock, if you, live that 30 years, well then, hey, that insurance company owes you that premium, okay? So that's fantastic, because now you have these sum of funds. Some people have ideas what they would like to do with it. Others don't, but they just want to make sure they have that option. And then, of course, they can use those funds to purchase their next permanent product for life insurance at age 70 if they choose to do that. So there's always an option there. Then going back to, now going to whole life insurance. So most people know about whole life insurance because that came on the scene first, right? And then term came afterwards. So especially my older clients, they always want a whole life policy because it accrues cash. And so that cash value is what people are really looking at. And so the benefits of having a cash value policy is that you can always tap into that. That's your money. You can tap into that. So if you needed a loan for whatever reason, you can do that. It will cost you, interest, right, and maybe some administrative fees to get that done. But that's no problem. That's your money. You can do that. If you pass away, they would just subtract that total, from your benefit. So if it was $25,000 benefit that you wanted, then if you took out a loan for $10,000, and I'm just going to include, all the administrative or interest in at $10,000, if you pass away, then your family would receive that $15,000, okay? But it's still a great option for people because a lot of people normally get it when their kids are small, right? They have paid up policies. They want to make sure, hey, in 20 years, it's paid up. I don't have to do anything else. It's there for my children if they need it. So just a great option to have. So I know a lot of people will always come to me. They may not know about the policy, but they're like, I think my mom told me that I have a whole life policy somewhere, but I don't know what it's about. So I hear that a lot. So again, just kind of throwing this out there. Once you get your policy, please, provide that information to your to your beneficiaries, okay? Just at least let them know the name of the company and the policy number and the amount. That's 3 basic things you can do. And it's so easy to get that information to people nowadays with all this technology. And the reason why I say that's so important is because a lot of companies are being bought and sold, okay? And things just change. Things happen. And sometimes if you don't get that information, people may not know where you have placed the information in your house, or may not have access to get off your computer. And so there could be something out there and people will never get access to it. And we don't want that. That goes everything against what we're trying to do with the life insurance policy. But yeah, so I definitely go through those policies with them. So that's that. And of course, the final expense, we go through that as well. That usually can, the products that I sell start off anywhere from $5,000 and goes up to $40,000. I really like that because there's an option for everyone, in my opinion, based on your health. I can get you approved. So basically, if you have really bad health, well, we can still get you approved. It may be on a graded death benefit. And what does that mean? It means that for first 2 years, because the insurance company has taken a risk on you, for the first 2 years, it just simply means that if you die, your beneficiaries will receive the premium that you paid into the policy plus 10%. Now, if you pass away within those 2 years due to an accident, well, then the entire policy pays out, right? Or if it's after 2 years, the entire policy pays out. But it's still nice to know that you have something that you can leave to your heirs. And then, of course, for everyone else who can definitely, pass the medical exams, no problem there. We can just go ahead and get you a traditional whole life policy.
Okay, so let's kind of simplify this a little bit because,
Okay.
like you said, there's a ton of different products out there.
Yes.
The way I kind of categorize them is that you have term policies or temporary policies.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have what's called permanent policies.
Mm-hmm.
So on the temporary policies first, you said you kind of prefer that because it allows you to get more benefit coverage for a lower premium dollar for a flat period of time.
Correct.
So, and there's a ton of different policies. You get annually renewable term,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10, 15, up to 30 years. And you can budget for that. It's pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those terms you can convert to a permanent policy at some point.
That's correct.
And then, when you're 70, normally these term policies are not designed for you to have when you're 70. So if you're 70 and you're trying to get a policy, you're kind of going to be limited to getting some kind of permanent policy as opposed to a temporary policy. But those fit, right, based on the goals of your client. And if they need coverage for a specific period of time, that's great.
Yeah.
But when you look at permanent policies, if you're getting a life insurance policy to make sure that your beneficiaries get a payment when you pass away, a term policy doesn't satisfy that because they're usually going to expire. And as you get older, the premiums are more expensive and your income is usually not as great. So if you look at permanent insurance policies, there's a ton of different policies out there.
Mm-hmm.
You as an insurance broker, and you're not a licensed representative, there are financial advisors that can offer variable universal life policies, right?
Correct.
But
That is correct.
you cannot offer that, can you?
No, I cannot.
Okay, so even when you look at those policies, financial advisors can probably offer policies that have some underlying investment vehicles that only registered representatives can offer.
And that's correct.
So if you go to an agent like yourself, you can offer whole life policies. And can you offer an index policy as well?
Well, I shouldn't say I can't offer UIL policies because I do have that option. I just have never done that for my clients.
Okay. So one of the things to understand is that if you're going to an agent is to understand of all of the universal types of policies, what can be offered, right?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it can be very complicated.
Oh, it's very complicated. But, and it's so funny because sometimes you get very savvy clients who are like, isn't there a mechanism where I can invest in the stock market, with my life insurance? I mean, they hear these things, especially if they're great researchers. So you want to make sure that, of course, since I'm not able to do that, I definitely have to put them in touch with someone who can, because you don't want to limit them just because you don't sell those products.
Yeah. So I have a preference too. I always say that when you're getting life insurance, even though there are some underlying investment vehicles in them, number one purpose for a life insurance policy is for life insurance.
Correct.
It's a secondary benefit to take money out of the policies to use it for investments, because when you do that, then you're taking away some of the benefit of having a life insurance policy for your beneficiaries.
Exactly.
And so
and I definitely
that's why
like to remind people that too when they take, that loan out.
for the whole
Yeah.
life policies, please pay that back. Make sure, we don't want your beneficiaries having to pay that or being out, right? Having to pay that and still having to come up with money for your funeral. That just defeats the point, defeats the purpose of life insurance.
Yeah, so the takeaway here is that realize that there's multiple types of policies. There's temporary policies that satisfy certain needs that are temporary.
Correct.
And then there's permanent policies, which are designed to have life insurance for your entire life so that whenever you pass away, hopefully in a very, very long time, at some point, your beneficiaries will get some benefit to either take care of the cost or help take care of some of your estate taxes or things of that level. But to really sit down and understand what are the different types and how can you combine the two possibly to accomplish getting as much coverage as you need, right, for what you've identified in the very beginning.
And you can. I actually work through that with some of my clients where, again, I love my savvy ones, right, because they have different reasons why they're needing insurance products. So we're looking at all types of angles. And I'm like, okay, let's check this combo out here. And, just kind of working through those numbers as well with them to see if it fits their financial needs. It definitely can very well work out to their benefit.
So how often do you meet with your clients? Like after you sit down and assess their needs right now, their life is always changing. So how often do you meet with them going forward?
So basically, so I actually have a membership. It's for all of my clients. It's complimentary, but it's called High Society, and the HI stands for Happy Insureds because a lot of people have, bad relationships with their agents, right? You talk to them all the time, like, oh my gosh, I never hear from these people until renewal time. They keep changing my agents, So I just want to stop that, negative relationship. So I'm very close with all of my clients. We're definitely like on a first name basis. I'm definitely a part of their family. And of course, I always tell them that I want to be their lifetime, insurance company. So with that being said, I check up on them very often. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I actually host events with our High Society membership. So I'm kind of always in front of them. They have access to my podcast. They have access to my email that I have from my email marketing. So I'm always in front of them. And so I'm always sending out surveys and things of that nature. So, I definitely get a lot of feedback. And sometimes, like I say, it's a very natural flow conversation. So if they have a question on anything, they can definitely reach out to me, and they know that they can expect to receive a quick response.
Yeah, and so in our show, we can't go into a lot of details. So definitely encourage you to sit down with a financial advisor or an insurance agent. If someone wanted to contact you, how do they reach you, Nicole?
Sure, yeah. So they can definitely contact me. My phone number is 214-463-1863. Feel free to call or text. Also, the email address is going to be nicole.ivory@aimutual.com, or for a quote, it's going to be quote@aimutual.com. Check us out on Facebook. You'll see all of our clips that we have with our insureds who are very satisfied. You'll hear those testimonials. You'll also see videos. We have on Mondays, we have our AIM News Week, so we definitely will inform you what's happening in and around the insurance industry. And so basically that's just facebook.com/AI Mutual.
Okay. And definitely, if down below in the description, there's going to be a link where they can download a PDF that has sheets where you go into more detail about term policy, which is one type of policy we talked about, the term with the return of premium, and you talked about that.
Love that. I love that product.
Pardon me?
Oh, I just said I love that product.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned final expense policies.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the graded death benefit?
I did. And so that's for my individuals who may not be the healthiest, but they definitely want to make sure that they have a life policy in place to be able to take care of their their final expense needs, and then potentially leave some extra money for their kids. So definitely with that, we can do that. It just usually has a 2-year probationary period.
Okay, and then you talked about the traditional whole life. So all of that information is going to be in the download that you could look in our description. Now, but explain the insurance process a little bit more.
Sure.
So someone wants to get a life insurance policy, and what is the process all about?
So I can tell you my process. I love our process. So on, so on day one, if someone reaches out to me, that's usually how it goes. I always like to introduce AIM to them. Okay, so it's always going to be an intro to AI Mutual. No selling, none of that. Just an intro to AIM. So we go through our entire presentation on that, where I actually educate them about myself, my company, the products that's available, and that's when we just kind of get to know each other, get to know about their goals, what's the purpose, why did they reach out, why are they concerned about having life insurance, is there a need for it, and then also at that time, I gather information from them, so that way I can create a quote, okay? So then I go back and do my research, create a tailored plan for them, and then I come back on the second. Usually it's a Zoom call or a phone call, especially now in these COVID times. And then that's when we go ahead and review their quote in detail. I'm really big on having comparison charts because I like to give people options, especially if they already have life insurance and they're maybe thinking about replacing their policy. I always ask for them to send that policy over to me. I include it in my comparison chart because sometimes if your current policy or if that product is actually the best for you, we will see that, okay? I like to, again, have an open, honest conversation because I think sometimes the insurance companies or any type of sales get a bad rep that you're just trying to push something on someone or you're trying to sell it. So I like for everyone to be able to see what we're talking about so that way they can make a well-informed decision. And so then also, too, I like to include those company product guides. So that way it gives a little bit more details about the product and the company. Again, I always include the AM Best rating, and AM Best is where you can find out how a company is doing financially, an insurance company is doing financially. That's very important because you don't want to, get a policy with the insurance company that's going to go insolvent, right? So I always like to tell people that I work with A and higher rated companies, which is extremely important because anything less than that is it's on shaky ground. So so people can feel very confident that the products I give them will be, are financially sound and that if they have a claim, they will be paid. You want to make sure you're paid. And so that's kind of the second meeting that we have. From there, if everything looks great, fantastic. I can actually sign them up online. It's the 21st century now, so we can definitely do everything online. We use DocuSign, so that way they can sign that on their end via their email and then get that off to the insurance carrier. Now, sometimes maybe they're like, well, that's too much money for me at the $500,000 level. Can you come back and tell me how much it would be at the $250,000 level? Actually, I want to add a child rider, to this. Can you come back and do that? So if we have anything that we need to modify, well, then that would bring us to a third meeting, right? But the same process would still apply. Then after that, I keep everyone, I use a really great project system. I keep everyone well informed. As soon as I get notifications from my account manager, then it goes directly to them. So I'm constantly sending text messages and emails to my clients. Anytime there's an exam that's scheduled, I send them tips on what they need to do to have a successful exam. So do not drink coffee like I do all the time. Make sure you drink plenty of water, night's rest, things like that. Just kind of letting them know that I care about their success of getting them approved. And then also, if there's anything else that's needed as far as doctor information, then we have to get that information taken care of. But I let them know. I believe in sometimes over communicating. I think that if you go a week without talking to your client, that's terrible, because they don't know what's going on with the process and they don't know if you're working on it, what's happening. So I like to at least every Friday provide an update for all of my clients and let them know where we are, if not sooner. Anytime something happens, a task happens, I always let them know. But for whatever reason, sometimes we're just waiting. If the insurance company has to pull an APS attending physician statement from their doctor, well, that takes like a week, to get back. So I may not have any updates from them that week, but I still let them know that I'm engaged and I'm working actively on their application.
Okay, so since you have multiple carriers that you can go with,
Yeah.
somewhere in the beginning of the process, you narrow down based on their needs and their situation that you've gathered, which carrier may be the best one for you to recommend to them, right?
Yeah, and a good thing now is over time, since I have been working with these carriers for like the last 3 years, I actually kind of have some go-to carriers now, depending on your age, depending on your goals. Like I actually have some really great ones. So for instance, if people do not want to go through exams, because some products require exams, some products do not, depending on your age, I have carriers that can fit that or fit that need, right? Also, there are some carriers that their products allow you to keep that product until age 70. Others say, hey, you have to make a decision by 65. Depending on my insured's age, one may be better than the other, and so I have carriers that fit that as well. And just little things, even just having your policy emailed to you or mailed to you, there's certain carriers for that. Some are more old school than others. But just, I'm really, at this point now, I kind of have my carriers down packed. But now, as of COVID, I had to get them down packed because, can I talk about COVID for a little bit, COVID-19?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So when that came on the scene in March, I mean, everything just changed like overnight for the insurance industry. Some I should say, elements that you may have had in 2019 that were like no big deal became a huge big deal in 2020. So it actually kind of slowed the process down for getting my insurance approved. And extra hoops, had to be jumped. Extra paperwork had to be filled out. First, it was, people over age 60 because that's what they were stating. But then, of course, now we see even babies. I mean, it doesn't matter what the age is, no matter if you're healthy or not. So now a lot of pretty much all of them now are trying to just cover themselves. So they want to make sure that everyone fills out the COVID questionnaire. That was a form that we never had to do. They ask more questions about that now in the tele-interview. And a tele-interview is something that a lot of people have to go through, a 30-minute call where they're just pretty much confirming everything that you submitted through your application. If anything came up on the MIB report. And basically what that is, the Medical Information Bureau. For any policy, they all have to go through any application, they have to cover three things. Medical Information Bureau, they also look at your RX or your pharmacy to see what type of drugs you're taking. And then also, of course, your driving record. They just want to make sure you don't have any DUIs, DWIs, right? So if anything pops up on that, they definitely want to question that in the initial tele-interview. But yeah, so it just COVID-19 really just took everyone by surprise. And of course, the working conditions, people had to adjust to working from home overnight. So a lot of the applications were just backlogged. There's no other way to say it. And not just with them, but you also have to think about their third-party vendors that they use when it came to, the APS people who process those and scan those documents, or even just requesting from the physician's office. So it just kind of I think now everyone's starting to get back into routine. And I'm saying just literally just like now, it's starting to get back into routine. But yeah, we're doing good now though.
So it's really good that you hold your client's hands through the process, because a lot of the parts are familiar, or they're not familiar with all of the parts.
Correct.
And this underwriting process is always the scary part, because that is where sometimes you come back and find out that there's a health condition that's going to change the initial quote that you
Oh
gave
yeah.
them.
And that happens. And so what I always like to tell people, because I actually when I provide rates to them, it's based off, of course, off of our call. I do ask them, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the healthiest, where would you rate yourself, right? And so what I personally do, if they tell me a 5, then I put a 4. If they tell me a 4, I put a 3. Because what I don't want to do is give them a rate that's so far from what they're going to receive, right? And then also, too, based on their medical conditions, I may already know just from experience, okay, well, no, that's going to be here. The good thing, too, is that I have a lot of great account managers. So sometimes when I'm just kind of confused about which way to go, I can send that off to them. And if I have a question about this particular medical condition, they can tell me on the substandard table where this person most likely will lie. So and what that basically means, substandard. So there's various rates, okay? So you have your preferred rate, which is, the premium, the best. Then you have your standard plus, and then your standard, okay? After that, they have a substandard table, and that's table ratings from 1 to table 8. So as you start to get on that substandard table, your premiums definitely go up. 8 is The 1 is being the best, 8 is being the worst, okay? So they could come back and say, well, this person's going to land on a 6. So based off of the 6, their premiums would be this. Now, of course, they haven't gone through underwriting or anything like that, right? But I like that because then I can come back to my clients and say, well, based on your medical conditions, right, that we've talked about, you're most likely going to be a 6, okay? But and so I like to prep them. Again, it's just about communication. And then people understand that they have medical conditions. They understand that insurance is based on your health and your age. So they get it. Now, do they like the prices? Of course not, but they understand, you know. So once you do that and you clear the way for that, well, then the rest of the conversation is easy. So once we have to, and I let people know up front that, hey, I may need your help. This is a partnership, right? Anything that's related to medical documents, I cannot, that's beyond my control, right? I will need your assistance in getting that information to our carriers in a timely manner. I always tell them, hey, contact your doctor's office. Let them know that they will be receiving a fax. People still fax, a fax, you know, from the carrier requesting this information so that way it can speed things up. Because I tell them some doctors' offices are better than others. I mean, it's just human nature, right? So we want to keep this process and the flow going as quickly as possible. And I really feel like everything's been working out fine. I get a lot of appreciation. I also thank my clients as well. Even if if I do a quote with someone and they don't want to go with me, I still thank them for their time. And I think that goes a long way as well. Especially in the insurance business, I think a lot of agents are just about numbers and not really about relationships. So I still want to make sure I have a great relationship with you, even if you choose not to do business with me.
So it's interesting when people come back and they find out that their actual premiums are maybe 2 to 3 times greater than what they were quoted.
Yes.
And
that's
so
yeah. Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with that? What do you tell them?
Right. So if I'm able to kind of already tell them in advance about where they're at on the table, then they kind of already have an idea, right? But if they don't, let's just say I have to come back and say, okay, great. Well, underwriting was able to approve you. However, it's going to be, like you said, 2 to 3 times higher. I was like, congratulations, you've been approved, right?
Right.
But it's at 2 to 3 times higher. I always tell them, hey, we really need to definitely look at getting this because it's kind of almost off the chart to be uninsurable. So we don't want to wait until that happens. We want to make sure that we're able to get something. Now, then that's when we kind of recalibrate, go back to their budget, right? Seeing if this is something that falls in their budget. If they had something that was for, you know, $250,000, well, let me come back and tell you what a quote could be for $100,000, right? We'll just try to figure out, and again, I come back to give them options. I usually like to already have those numbers before I come back to that person. So that way, if they say, hey, that 250 is fine, great, let's rock. If they're like, well, Nicole, I don't know about that, then no problem. So, you know, let's talk about 200,000, 100,000. You know, I like to already have those options available for them, and they appreciate that too. And then we can kind of make a decision from there. And then I can just update that with the carrier, and we can still get their application enforced. So that's awesome too.
Well, what's really important about this, though, is that if someone comes back with their insurance table rated, and I'll be kind of transparent because I was table rated as well, right? Because I have a heart condition.
Yes.
And so my table rating, based on what carrier, is either a C or a D.
Okay.
So the comment is, yeah, it may be higher, but it's also an indication that there's a greater likelihood that your beneficiaries will be getting a check.
That's true. Exactly.
Because you have a health issue that is,
Right.
you know, puts you in a higher risk category.
Exactly.
And again, we talked in the very beginning about you being my brother's agent. And just going back to that, he attended one of your workshops. What was the name of your workshop?
Yeah, so it's called Coverage Over Coffee. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I love coffee. So I had to figure out a way to mix the two together, insurance and coffee, my two loves. But Coverage Over Coffee sessions. So I used to hold those in person at my office, and very intimate. I love intimate settings with like about 10 people. And so we have a great discussion. Each time we talk, it's a different topic. So we may talk about life insurance, may talk about generational wealth. I actually have one coming up on September 22nd at noon where we're going to be talking about Medicare. So it's called Medicare Made Easy. So just in time, you know, for open enrollment. But yeah, so I really like that because now I get to talk to everyone one-on-one. They feel very comfortable in small settings like that about opening up about their personal experiences. about maybe things that have happened in their family, and then we can just throw solutions out there as well. But I really love it. It's a great time, and again, they're with like-minded people who want to move their families forward financially.
And so I think there's a clip that you have of my brother giving you a testimonial after one of those sessions.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can play that right now.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for attending today's coverage over coffee. How was today's session?
I enjoyed it. It was very energetic. A lot of information was conveyed that helped me think about not only my future, my children's future, but my children's future.
That's awesome.
Important also.
Okay. And then what did you learn today?
I learned that we don't really think about our next, the second, the third, or fourth generation. Think about ourselves and our kids. Sometimes not even that, but we need to think further into the future. But all the ones who carry our last name, like you say, the Johnsons.
That's right. And would this be a session that you would recommend for others to attend?
Without a doubt. I plan on coming back also to get more information and try to put some things into play to help my future generations.
All right. Well, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
It's really cool that Tyro was talking about generational wealth.
Wow. Yeah.
It is just so amazing how many times we had that conversation.
Wow.
And he just made it seem like it wasn't as important to him. But the fact is that it was.
He was listening to you.
And that's true. You just never know, right?
Never know. You just never know. And thank
So-
God, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely want to thank you for your
Thank you.
time, right? And for what you do.
Yeah.
And all of the time that you spent with us and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with the Empower Series community.
Awesome.
Tell us again, how do we get in touch with you if we want to get more information or go into more detail and ask you some more pertinent questions specific about us or individuals?
No problem. So yes, I'm definitely always available. Feel free to email me, nicole.ivory@aimutual.com. If you need a quote at aimutual.com. Please check us out on Facebook. I think you would enjoy. You may spend all day there just looking at the videos and testimonials that we have. And then also we're on YouTube. All right, so check us out there. And then lastly, I do have some of our podcasts up on justasknicole.org. But it's a blessing to be here. Thanks again for inviting me.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank all of you who've been watching. Normally I close out by telling you to go to our website, which is www.empowerseries.com. I thank our sponsors, which is Comerica Bank, AE Media Group, and all of you who donated your time, your resources, your money. One of the things I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually play a portion of the interview that I did with my brother back in August of last year, because as we wrapped up, I asked him to provide one of his closing comment. And his comment was something that I hold on to today because of his life and the example that he lived. He said this. He said, whatever you're going through, never give up hope. Because whatever you're going through, it's survivable. And he said it in his own words. So as I close you out tonight or today, I would definitely want to say, never give up hope, be empowered and inspired to thrive, and share this with someone else. Subscribe to our channel, share it with other people. There's somebody within your circle that can use the information that we talked about today. So thank you for your time. And we'll close out with my brother.
So Tyro, man, I know that we can continue to talk for a while, but I want to make sure that, what would be your message to people who are at different phases of the journey that you're on to really give them hope, inspiration, or to some resource that they can connect out to? Just want to give you an opportunity to give a shout out to the organization
there's organizations, but then you pigeonhole what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the main thing is, like we talked about earlier, don't give up hope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you give up hope and you quit, then you've lost. Whatever you're going through, it's survivable.
There you go.
Okay, that's cold though. And one thing, and I don't want to get too spiritual or religious or whatever like that, but one thing that I believe, and it's hard to believe it, is that when we go through certain, if you look at the Bible and certain things happen in the Bible, you know what I'm saying? And you look at Job, everything about Job, how when he lost this, lost that, lost this, lost that, and he still, he still had faith in God. You know what I'm saying? But then when you really look at it, you go back a step a minute. It's like all the stuff that he went through, God said he can put him through it.
Right, because well, here, test him, right? Test him.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So let's look at our lives. God approved what we go through. You can handle it.
Yeah.
He think if you believe in God, then what you're going through, God believes you can handle it.
Whatever that might be.
Because you see what I'm saying? So now the question is, are you going to give up or are you going to keep going?
Yeah. Are you going to show God right?
You know what I'm saying? But when I was exposed to that, I had to sit back for a second. Wait a minute now, because I was going through, and we go through different stuff too. Some stuff we go through that we self-inflict ourselves on. Some stuff just happens. Some people may say that if you smoke, people may say that they had something out the other day about if you do too much of video games. It was something off the point, but if you do too much of this, you'll get cancer. And it wasn't even physically fitting. Yeah, right. It was like if you do too much of looking at the camera and smiling, you'll get cancer.
If you do too much of breathing the air,
you know
you'll
what I'm
get
saying?
cancer, right?
All right. So some stuff like cancer, may not be. I didn't smoking cigarettes. I think it's kind of different, but some stuff we go through that isn't. We have no reason why we don't know how we got there. You know what I'm saying? And that's just life on life's terms. Why me? Why not me? You know what I'm saying? But then some stuff we put ourselves through, and divorce and
right.
wrong financial decisions and stuff like that. Bankruptcy. That's no one put that on your plate.
Those are the choices you made.
Thank you. You see what I'm saying? But even with that, God believes you can get through that. You know what I'm saying? So the question is, are you going to use your resources that are there? Are you going to look for the resources that may be there to help you get through those things?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where you're a godsend, because you're trying to expose a bit of resources to get to certain areas of their lives. You know what I'm saying? But the message is, don't give up.
There you go.
Because if you give up, then you're not doing your potential.
Right.
Again, God and the devil, whatever, you're letting the devil win. I don't want to say that. But if you give up, then you're giving up. And why give up?